Hello and welcome back to Two Dark Dozes. Before we begin, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I love reading every single one. If you enjoy dark doses of horror that hit you twice as hard, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Now, get comfortable. Dim the lights if you dare, relax your mind, let the outside world fade away, and let's begin. Story 1, I was new to the area, and I did not know where the good running spots were yet. When I moved, that was one of the first things I wanted to figure out. Some people care about finding the best grocery store, the nearest gas station, or a decent coffee shop. I cared about where I could jog without getting killed by a truck coming over a blind hill. The area was beautiful, but it was not exactly made for runners. A lot of the roads were narrow, steep, and full of sharp turns. Some of them rose and dipped so quickly that a driver could come over the top of a hill and not see you until they were almost on top of you. That had already happened to me more than once. I would be running along the shoulder, minding my own business, and then headlights or a grill would suddenly appear over the crest of the hill, too close and moving too fast. The drivers always swerved at the last second, and I always acted like I was fine afterward, but my heart would be pounding for the next half mile. After the third time, I decided I needed somewhere flatter, somewhere straighter, somewhere with fewer turns and less traffic. I checked Meetup first, hoping local joggers had posted about routes nearby. Then I checked Google Maps and followed the roads around my new house. That was how I found Briar Road. On the map, it looked almost perfect. It was not too far from my place, and it was fairly straight compared to the other roads around it. It ran through a wooded area and looked mostly level. There were not many houses close to the road, and the ones that were there seemed spread out far apart. There were also not many connecting streets, so I guessed it would not have much traffic. For a morning jog, that sounded ideal. As a woman, I usually prefer roads like that. I know some people will understand that right away, and some people will not. But when you run alone, especially around dawn or dusk, you think about things that other people might not. A road with too many houses means too many porches, too many windows, and too many men standing around with nothing better to do than stare. A busy road means honking, catcalling, and sometimes people slowing down to say things that make your skin crawl. A totally empty road can be dangerous too, of course, but if it is open and quiet, at least you can hear a car coming. At least you do not feel like you are performing for every stranger who happens to be outside. I have had problems before. Once, a man followed me for almost half a mile in his car. He kept rolling beside me, smiling through the passenger window, asking if I wanted to see something. I told him no. I sped up. He kept following. I crossed the road. He turned around and followed again. I finally had to pull out pepper spray and point it at him before he drove away, laughing like I was the rude one. So yes, I think about where I run. Because of my new commute and the hours of my job, I knew I would probably end up jogging early in the morning or later in the evening. That made privacy and safety even more important. Briar Road looked like the best option I had found. Then I searched it on Meetup. That was when things got strange. At first, I expected to find normal comments. Maybe someone warning that the shoulder was rough or that dogs chased runners near a certain house. Maybe someone saying the road was quiet but boring. Instead, Briar Road had a reputation. Not a normal reputation either. Most of the comments were vague. People said they would avoid it. They said it did not feel right. They said there were better places to run. Some said they turned around early and did not know why. Others just said, "Don't go alone," or "Never again." But a few of the posts were more specific. One person claimed they heard loud tribal drums coming from somewhere deep in the woods, even though there were no homes, parks, or event spaces nearby. Another person said they saw a deer standing in the tall weeds beside the road, watching them pass with 3 bright yellow eyes. Someone else said the whole place felt wrong, like the air was thinner there, and described jogging through Briar Road as running through the Bermuda Triangle. That last one made me roll my eyes. I had just gotten a job supervising a research and development team for a lens manufacturing company. I had 2 master's degrees. I believed in evidence, not spooky stories people posted online because they got scared by fog and deer. The Bermuda Triangle, ghosts, monsters, UFOs, all of that stuff sounded to me like things bored people made up when they lived in rural areas and wanted their little town to feel special. I told myself Briar Road was probably just a normal wooded road with bad lighting and an internet myth attached to it. So on Friday morning, I decided to run it. Near the junction where Briar Road began, there was a small historical marker on the roadside. It was one of those old signs that tells you something happened there 100 or 200 years ago, but nobody really stops long enough to care. I parked my car near it, making sure I was far enough off the road. It was a chilly morning. The air had that damp bite it gets after rain. A thin layer of fog hung low over everything, and pale clouds kept the sun from fully breaking through. It had rained the night before, so the pavement was still wet in places, with little dark patches where water had gathered in cracks. I wore my bright yellow running jacket, navy blue jogging pants, and an orange sweatband. I wanted drivers to see me clearly, even if the road was empty. I had forgotten to charge my wireless earbuds, so I had to use an old pair of wired earphones. I looped the cord around my sweatband to keep it from bouncing too much, and tucked my phone into the carrier strapped to my upper arm. I stretched beside the car for a few minutes, then started with a warm-up walk toward the mouth of Briar Road. The place looked harmless enough at first. Quiet, yes, a little lonely, maybe, but not haunted. Not cursed, just an old road cutting through damp trees. I started jogging against traffic, like you were supposed to do. Right away, I noticed the road was not very well maintained. The shoulder was chipped and uneven, with chunks of old asphalt broken away near the edges. Weeds pushed up through cracks. The trees grew too close to the road, and their branches leaned over in places, making a tunnel of wet leaves and shadow. Poison ivy vines hung from some of the trunks and crept down close to where I was running, so I stayed farther into the lane than I normally would have liked. The fog made it hard to see very far ahead. The road dipped slightly and curved left in a long, easy bend. Past that, everything blurred into gray. The woods on both sides were thick and steep in places, rising and falling in overgrown hills. I heard a few bird calls, faint and far away, but not much else. There were 2 houses near the start of the road, both far enough back that I could only partly see them through the trees. They looked abandoned. One had a sagging porch and boards over one window. The other had peeling white paint and a roof that looked like it had started to cave in near the center. Neither had cars in the driveway. Neither had lights on. I kept running. After a while, my nerves settled. My breathing found its rhythm. My heart rate rose in that steady, satisfying way that makes the whole body feel awake. My ankle hurt a little because I had not jogged in almost a week and a half because of the move, but it was not bad. Mostly, I felt good. I started thinking about my new job. I was supposed to begin the next week. The company made specialized lenses, and I would be supervising part of the research and development team. It was the kind of job I had worked hard to get, the kind that made all the years of school and late nights feel worth it. Then my thoughts drifted to the people I had already met there. One of them, Alicia, had made the biggest impression on me. She was bright, funny, and impossible not to like. A real social butterfly. She had already invited me to join the rest of the lab for a welcome gathering the next day. She said they were going to swim in her pool, drink in her backyard, and help me meet everyone before my first official week. I had been looking forward to it more than I wanted to admit. Moving to a new place can make you feel like a ghost. You walk through stores and streets where nobody knows your name. You eat alone, sleep in a house that still smells unfamiliar, and try to convince yourself that starting over is exciting instead of lonely. Having someone invite me somewhere so quickly felt good. I got lost in those thoughts for about a mile. Then the fog thickened. It happened fast. One moment I could see the road ahead for a decent distance, and the next it was like the world had narrowed to the few yards in front of my face. The trees faded. The road faded. Even the sound changed, becoming soft and close, like I had stepped inside a padded room. I slowed down and moved closer to the shoulder in case a car came through. Just as I came out of the thickest part of the fog, another jogger suddenly raced past me. I almost jumped out of my skin. For 1 second, though, I felt relieved. Another runner. Another normal person. The sight of them made me feel silly for ever taking the meetup comments seriously. Of course, Briar Road was not some haunted Bermuda Triangle. Of course, people ran here. Maybe this person was out doing the same thing I was, taking advantage of the quiet road before the day started. I could not tell if the jogger was a man or a woman. They had their hood up, and their clothes were caked in mud. Their face was mostly hidden, but I saw enough to notice a bloody scratch across one cheek. They looked disheveled, like they had fallen more than once, or been running through the woods instead of on the road. They waved their hands at me wildly as they approached, not in greeting, in warning. Their mouth moved under the muddy hood. As we crossed paths, I pulled one earbud from my ear because I thought they were speaking to me. What came out of their mouth was not a normal voice. It was high, shrill, and fast, like the chipmunks played through an old cassette tape that had been sped up until it squealed. The sound scraped through my ears and made my whole body tighten. I could not understand a single word. It was speech, or close to speech, but twisted so badly that it seemed to skip through the air in pieces. Then the jogger was past me. They vanished into the fog behind me, running fast. I stopped. My body broke stride before I even decided to. My heart slammed in my chest, and for a second it felt like frogs were leaping in my throat. I stood there with my arms slightly raised at my sides, not quite defensive and not quite ready to run. What had I just seen? What had I just heard? A few minutes earlier, my brain had been rewarding me for being rational, for ignoring online nonsense and trusting the real world. Now that same brain was flooding me with adrenaline. It felt almost like the moment with the creepy man in the car, when I had reached for the pepper spray and understood that something had gone wrong in a way politeness could not fix. I turned around, trying to see the jogger through the fog. Nothing, just gray air and wet road. For a moment, I did not know what to do. I took a few steps one way, then stopped. I turned back toward my car, then looked ahead again. I felt foolish, scared, and angry at myself all at once. Then I made the wrong choice. I kept going. The fog thinned again after another mile or so, but by then I noticed something impossible. The sun had changed. When I started my run, the sun had been low on my left, just beginning to rise behind the tree line. Now it looked dimmer. Lower, it was behind the trees in a way that made long shadows stretch across the road, as if evening was coming instead of morning. I kept running, trying to talk myself out of the fear. Maybe I'd remembered the sun wrong. Maybe the clouds made it look strange. Maybe the bend in the road had changed my direction more than I realized. Maybe I was overthinking everything because of the weird jogger. But the sense that something was wrong kept growing. Then my music stopped. I had been listening to old Lady Gaga, one of those songs I knew well enough that I could run to it without really thinking. Then, mid-song, it died. I glanced down at the phone strapped to my arm and tried to wake the screen. Nothing. The screen stayed black. Then I realized my music was not the only thing missing. I could not hear my footsteps. I slowed, confused, and looked down at my shoes hitting the cracked pavement. I was still running. My feet were landing. My legs were moving. But there was no sound, no slap of rubber on wet road, no rustle of my jacket, no breath. I could not hear myself breathing. I yanked both earbuds out and held them in my hand, listening hard. Still nothing from my body. The world around me was silent too, but not in a normal way. It was like sound had been peeled off everything. Then, as I stared at my feet, I heard music. Not from my earbuds, from my footsteps. Every time my shoes hit the pavement, Lady Gaga's voice came out in short, broken pieces, replacing the rhythm of my footfalls. I stopped running, but the sound seemed to lag behind for a second, a few last notes clicking against the road after my feet had already stopped. I put one earbud back into my left ear. Through it, I could suddenly hear the clip-clop of my shoes and the rush of air in and out of my mouth. I ripped it out again. The sounds vanished. I stopped completely. For a moment, the entire world shimmered. Tiny sparkles moved through the air in front of me, not like dust in sunlight, but like the air itself was made of broken glass. The trees, the road, even my hands seemed to bend and glitter. Then the effect lifted, and sound returned to normal. Music played faintly from the earbud in my hand. My open ear could hear my breathing. That was when I truly panicked. I thought I might be having a stroke. I tore my phone out of the carrier on my arm and tried to call an ambulance. The screen was still black, dead, yet the phone continued playing music. That should have been impossible. The battery should have been dead, or the screen should have turned on. Something should have made sense. But nothing did. Looking down at the dark screen also made me realize just how dark the road had become. I looked left and saw the last orange and gold light of the sun straining through the trees. It looked like sunset, not sunrise. If I had not known my car was about 3 miles behind me near the historical marker, I might have completely lost my mind right there. I told myself I did not need to understand what was happening. I did not need to solve it. Stroke, hallucination, weird road, whatever it was, I just needed to get back to my car. Then I could go to a hospital. Then I could call someone. Then I could be away from Briar Road. I turned around and ran. Not my normal jog, not even my faster run. I sprinted as hard as I could. Almost immediately, I noticed the road ahead did not look right. I knew fog had hidden a lot while I was running, but this road seemed different from the one I had just come down. It was hillier now. The trees were taller and packed closer together. The asphalt looked older and more broken. The painted center lines were missing. I did not remember seeing guardrails before, but now long metal rails ran along parts of the road where the ground dropped off into ditches. I told myself fear was messing with my memory. Then the sun moved. I saw it. I actually saw the dying sun shift from my right side, drift across the road, and settle on my left side again, exactly where it had been before I turned around. A wave of nausea hit me so hard I nearly fell. It felt like being a child again, spinning in circles with my eyes closed, then opening them and not knowing where the ground was. I stopped and looked around, breathing too fast. I did not know which way to go anymore. It felt like the entire world had spun around to keep me moving in the same direction, no matter which way I turned. So I turned around again. After a few seconds, I decided that this time I was probably going the right way. I tried to get my rhythm back. One step, then another. Breathe in, breathe out. Keep moving. Then a loud metallic sound came from behind me. I turned. In the dying light, the steel guardrails along the road popped free from their wooden posts. One section after another tore loose with sharp cracks and heavy bangs. The rails fell into the dirt, and for one confused second, I thought the whole roadside was collapsing. Then, the rails started to move. They rolled and bent in the dirt like huge snakes or worms. Their long metal bodies twisted, curled, and arched upward. The sound was horrible. Grinding steel. Bending metal, the screaming scrape of something that should never move, trying to become alive. Two guardrails rose into the air, towering 15 or 20 feet above the road. They bent themselves into tall walking shapes. Each one looped its body into something like a head and torso, while the ends of the rail struck the ground like thin stick legs. The yellow reflector discs along them turned and shifted until they faced me. Eyes, amber eyes, catching the last drops of sunlight. The metal heads lowered slightly, and I had the terrible sense that they were displeased to find me there. Then they started after me. I ran faster than I had ever run in my life. Behind me, the guardrail creatures scraped and bashed against the road, their metal feet slamming into broken asphalt. They moved awkwardly but fast, bending and gripping and snapping forward in huge, unnatural strides. Every time one of them struck the pavement, the sound rang through the trees. I imagined what they would do if they caught me. Maybe they would bend down and loop around my neck like a metal noose. Maybe they would tighten until my head came off. Maybe they would wrap around my ribs and crush me flat. Maybe that was how they ate, if eating was even the right word for something made of road metal and reflectors. For one moment, I considered leaving the road and diving into the woods. Poison ivy, three-eyed deer, and phantom drums suddenly sounded better than being strangled by a walking guardrail. But another thought stopped me. Maybe that was exactly what they wanted. Maybe the road had things on it to chase people into the woods, and the woods had worse things waiting. So I stayed on the pavement. The fog thickened again ahead of me. I was still terrified, but some part of me thought I might be able to lose the metal things in it. I pushed harder, lungs burning, legs screaming. Then 2 bright headlights appeared in the fog directly in front of me. I barely had time to react. The light blinded me. I jumped toward the muddy shoulder and slipped. My feet went out from under me, and I hit the ground hard. My face struck a broken piece of asphalt. Pain burst across my cheek. I tasted dirt and blood. I rolled onto my side, clutching my face. A dark shape moved through the fog. It was not a car, not exactly. It looked like a black cube with two brilliant lights on the front. It glided more than drove, silent, except for a low humming sound that I felt in my bones. The cube smashed into the guardrail creatures. The metal beings unraveled at once. They twisted apart, dropped back to the ground, and rolled away from the road. Their bodies slid back toward the wooden posts like dead snakes returning to where they belonged. The black cube drifted past them. Then a second cube followed. Both left the road and moved through the trees as if the trunks were not solid. They passed into the forest and disappeared without breaking a branch. For several seconds, I lay in the mud, shaking. My cheek burned. Warm blood ran down my face and chin. My knee hurt badly where it had slammed into the ground. My clothes were covered in mud, and the cold was sinking through them fast. It was almost completely dark now. I pulled my hood up with muddy hands and forced myself to stand. I checked my phone again, because panic makes you do stupid things even when you know they will not help. This time, the black screen showed an image. At first, I thought it was a reflection of my own face. Then, the image moved. A thin line traced around my cheek, following the cut where I was bleeding. On the screen, blood began to gush from the wound, far more than was coming out in real life. The skin around it peeled away as if dragged by the rushing red. Then, the rest of the skin on my face tore loose. My cheeks, lips, ears, and forehead pulled off my skull in one wet sheet. Underneath was gray-red muscle, exposed teeth, and bulging eyes. I screamed out loud, alone on that road, to nothing and no one. For 1 second, I almost ripped the phone from its carrier and threw it into the trees. But some part of me was too scared to get rid of it. Another part thought I might still need it if I ever got out. So I left it strapped to my arm and kept moving. I ran again. The pain was catching up to me now. My knee burned every time my foot struck the ground. My cheek throbbed. My lungs felt raw. Sweat and tears ran into my eyes under the sweatband, making everything blur. I tried to run faster anyway, because slowing down felt like giving Briar Road permission to keep me. Fog rolled across the road again, thick enough to hide almost everything ahead. Then I saw a figure coming toward me. A woman. At least that was what she looked like through my wet, stinging eyes. She seemed normal. She wore running clothes. She moved with the steady rhythm of someone at the beginning of a jog. Relief hit me so hard that I almost sobbed. I waved both hands and tried to flag her down as I kept running. As we came close to each other, I yelled, "Turn back. Turn back now. Please help me." My voice came out high, broken, and strange. She looked startled. Then she passed me, and I passed her. A second later, she disappeared into the fog behind me. I kept running forward, but a cold sweat spread over my body, because I realized who she was. That was me. That was me at the start of the run. I had just passed myself. I thought about turning back. I thought about chasing her, warning her, stopping her before she went deeper. But before I could decide, another impossible thing happened. The fog lifted suddenly, but the road changed with it. Water on the pavement began to bead up, as if the asphalt had turned oily and was rejecting it. The droplets trembled. Then they rose into the air, not evaporating, rising whole like invisible hooks, had caught the center of each drop and pulled them upward. Reverse rain. The water lifted from the road in thousands of tiny beads, floating back toward the clouds. As the mist cleared, I saw the cross street ahead. My car was less than 500 feet away. The sun was up again, nearly cresting the trees, just like when I had started my run. I did not stop to question it. I ran the rest of the way to my car. I was muddy, bleeding, bruised, and half out of my mind, but the sight of the historical marker and my parked car almost made me collapse with relief. I do not clearly remember getting in. I do not remember starting the engine. I do not remember pulling away. The short drive home was a blur, like my body drove while my mind stayed behind on Briar Road. When I reached my house, I did not want to stay there. It was too quiet, too private. I wanted people around me, normal people, fluorescent lights, corporate music, the smell of burnt espresso. Anything that proved the world was still ordinary somewhere. So I grabbed a clean jacket from the back seat, took my laptop, and drove to the only place I felt safe. A Starbucks in Little Fort. I must have looked insane when I walked in. My hair was messy, my face was cut, my pants were muddy. Even with a clean jacket, I probably looked like I had crawled out of a ditch. The baristas kept glancing at me over the counter as I took a little table by the window. I could feel them watching, probably wondering if I was on drugs or having some kind of breakdown. Maybe I was. My hands shook as I opened my laptop and logged on to Meetup. I needed to write down what had happened before I convinced myself it had not. My foot tapped against the table stand over and over, fast enough to make a small rattling sound. I ordered coffee mostly so they would not ask me to leave. As the caffeine hit me and the quiet, familiar atmosphere started to calm me down, I noticed something that made my heart start pounding all over again. The calendar on my laptop said it was Sunday, 9:00 a.m. I stared at it. That could not be right. I had gone for my run around 7:00 a.m. on Friday. Friday, not Sunday. I checked Google. I checked the clock. I refreshed the page. Everything said the same thing. Sunday morning. That was when I realized I had not looked at my phone since it had shown me my own face being skinned alive. It was still strapped to my arm, hidden under the cleaner jacket. I almost got up to ask the barista what day it was, but stopped myself. They already looked like they were trying to decide whether to call someone about me. If I walked up covered in cuts and mud and asked what day it was, that would probably confirm every bad thought they were having. So I forced myself to check the phone. I pulled it from the carrier with shaking hands. The screen was still black at first. Then I pressed the power button. It turned on like normal. My home screen confirmed it. Sunday, my phone began reconnecting to the network. Notifications started pouring in. Messages, missed calls, voicemails. There were 5 voicemails. 4 were from Alicia. The first was cheerful, asking where I was and whether I was still coming to the lab welcome party. The second was a little confused. The third sounded annoyed. The fourth had been left around 1:00 a.m. Sunday, and her voice was quiet and disappointed. She said she guessed I was not coming and hoped everything was okay. The 5th voicemail was from an unknown caller. I played it. There was no voice, only loud drumming. At first, it was far away. Then it got louder and louder. I stopped the message before it finished. For a while, I just sat there in the Starbucks, holding the phone in both hands. People around me typed on laptops, talked quietly, picked up drinks, complained about cold foam, and lived normal Sunday lives. I had been on Briar Road for 2 days, or it had taken 2 days from me, and nobody in that coffee shop knew or cared. I did not know who to call. I did not know who would believe me. Finally, I called Alicia. I did not know what I was going to say. I only knew I needed to apologize for missing the party. When she picked up, I started stammering right away. I told her I was sorry, that something happened, that I knew it sounded strange, that I had gone for a jog, and then she interrupted me. "Where did you go jogging?" There was something in her voice that made me stop. I told her. Briar Road. She went silent for a few seconds. Then she told me what Meetup had already tried to tell me, and what I am telling you now. Something beyond this world controls Briar Road. It does not like trespassers. It does not matter if you believe in ghosts. It does not matter if you believe in monsters, the Bermuda Triangle, or any of the things you think only foolish people talk about. It does not matter if you think you are too smart to be scared of a road. Make up any explanation you want. Tell yourself, I had a stroke. Tell yourself I got lost in fog. Tell yourself I hallucinated, passed out, and wandered around for 2 days. Tell yourself anything that helps you sleep. But take my advice. Do not jog on Briar Road. Story 2. I guess I should start by explaining why I am giving you advice in the first place. It is not because I care about you. Please do not misunderstand me. I am not sitting here with a warm heart, worried about strangers on the internet. I am not trying to save lives because I suddenly found a conscience in the back of a drawer. That would be a nice story, wouldn't it? A monster grows tired, looks at the blood on his hands, and decides to warn the world before it is too late. No, that is not what this is. I am giving you advice because all of you have become too easy. That is the truth. That is the only truth that matters. You have made things boring. You have made the hunt dull. You have taken something that used to require patience, planning, charm, timing, and effort, and turned it into a task so simple it feels insulting. I do not do what I do because it is easy. If I wanted easy, I would go back to small animals, rabbits, squirrels, things that panic and run in a straight line because they do not understand there is nowhere to go. But people were supposed to be different. People were supposed to be interesting. People were supposed to fight the dark part of the world with all that clever little fire inside their heads. And yet here you are, handing yourselves over like gifts. So, I am going to help you. Not out of kindness, but because I need this to become interesting again. I need you to make better choices. I need you to stop walking into danger with your phone in one hand and your entire life story in the other. I need you to stop confusing politeness with safety. I need you to stop acting like the world is softer than it is. Follow what I am saying, and maybe you will live longer. Maybe you will make things harder for people like me. Maybe, if I am lucky, you will make the game worth playing again. The first thing you need to stop doing is trusting strangers from the internet so quickly. I understand loneliness. I understand wanting someone to text you good morning. I understand wanting a body beside yours on a cold night. Someone who laughs at your jokes. Someone who looks at you like you are not just another forgotten person in a crowded world. Life is hard. People are lonely. Everyone wants to be chosen. But online dating has made you careless. You talk to someone for a few days, and suddenly you are ready to meet them in a parking lot, in a bar you have never been to, in a neighborhood you do not know, or at their apartment because they said they make great pasta. You send photos. You send your work schedule. You tell them where you live, where you grew up, what scares you, and which friend you would call if something went wrong. You hand over the map, and then act surprised when someone follows it. I used to work harder than this. Years ago, I had to sit across from someone at a speed dating event, watch their eyes, listen to what they said, and learn which cracks I could press my fingers into. I had to discover who was lonely, who was reckless, who was trying too hard to seem brave. I had to earn trust in person. Now you do half the work before I even meet you. You write things like, "I'm nervous but excited." You say, "I don't usually do this." You say, "I'm not from around here." You say, "I live alone." You say, "My friends told me to be careful. Ha ha." That little ha ha at the end is the saddest part. It is the sound people make when fear is trying to warn them, but they do not want to look rude. The next thing you need to understand is simple. Do not go to a second location. Never. I know some of you are already making excuses in your head. You are thinking, what if the date is going well? What if we just want to grab dessert somewhere else? What if there is a cool club nearby? What if the first place is too loud? What if they seem nice? Stop. There is no what if good enough. If the plan is dinner, then eat dinner. If the plan is a movie, then watch the movie. If the plan is coffee, then drink the coffee and leave when it is over. Make plans for another day if you want. Text later. Smile at the door. Go home and do whatever you need to do to calm down, celebrate, or burn off the nervous energy. But do not get in the car. Do not follow someone down the street because they say they know a better place. Do not let them walk you through a side entrance. Do not go to their friend's apartment for just one drink. Do not let curiosity carry you from the place where people can see you to the place where no one can hear you. Do you know how many people have been taken because someone said, "There's this amazing little bar nearby. You have to see it"? Do you know how many people smiled, hesitated, and then said, "Sure"? Of course you do not. That is why you keep doing it. And I hate how easy that is. Charisma is not safety. You should tattoo that inside your eyelids if you need to. Charisma does not mean safe. Good eye contact does not mean safe. A nice smile does not mean safe. Being funny does not mean safe. Having a dog in a profile photo does not mean safe. A calm voice does not mean safe. A clean shirt, a good job, a soft laugh, and a story about their grandmother do not mean safe. I feel like all of you learned nothing from history. You watch documentaries about killers and then somehow still think danger will look like danger. You think it will have wild eyes and dirty clothes. You think it will breathe too hard and stand too close. You think it will say something wrong in the first 5 minutes and give itself away. Sometimes it does. Most of the time, it does not. Sometimes it holds the door open for you. Sometimes it pays for dinner. Sometimes it remembers your favorite drink. Sometimes it tells you exactly what you want to hear, because it has been listening very carefully. That is the part you forget. People like me listen. We do not always listen because we care. We listen because people reveal themselves when they talk. They tell you where they are weak. They tell you who they are trying to impress. They tell you what they are ashamed of. They tell you which wound has never healed. And then they smile. because they think being understood is the same thing as being safe. It is not. Until someone proves otherwise over time, assume they want something from you. For some people, it is money. For others, attention. For some, control. For me, it is something worse. But the beginning looks the same. We lie. We smile. We make you comfortable. We ask questions. We say, you can trust me. And so many of you do. That is what annoys me most. I barely have to lie anymore. I do because I like the shape of it. I like watching someone step over their own fear because I gave them a prettier story to follow. But honestly, half the time, the lie is barely needed. I do not know if it is loneliness or if my face is just that convincing. I would like to believe it is because I am handsome. Vanity is one of the few hobbies I have left. Either way, stop being so easy. Stop acting like being suspicious is a character flaw. Suspicion keeps animals alive. It is why deer freeze at the sound of a branch breaking. It is why birds scatter before the storm arrives. Humans used to have that too. You still have it, buried under manners, social pressure, and the need to be liked by people who have done nothing to earn it. You feel the warning. You just bury it. You think, maybe I'm being dramatic. You think, I don't want to seem rude. You think, they'll think I'm paranoid. Then you follow the person into the dark. Another thing you need to stop doing is pretending your tiny self-defense tools make you invincible. I am not here to give you a shopping list. I am not your trainer. I am not your father. But I will say this clearly. Having something in your bag does not matter if you cannot reach it, cannot use it, or freeze the moment you need it. Too many people carry something and mistake that for being prepared. That false confidence gets people killed. They think because they bought a spray, a keychain, an alarm, or some shiny little object from an online store, the world has become safer. It has not. The world did not change because you put something pink and plastic on your keyring. If you choose to carry protection, learn it. Practice with it. Understand where it is. Understand what you would do if fear made your hands useless. Understand that violence is fast, ugly, close, and nothing like the clean little videos people watch online. If you are not prepared to react, then whatever you carry is only decoration. And decoration does not save you. Your personal information should stay personal. I should not be able to learn enough about you in 10 minutes to guess your passwords, your routines, and the place you will be next Friday night. But most of you make it easy. You post your gym. You post your coffee shop. You post the outside of your apartment building because the sunset looks pretty behind it. You post your workplace in your bio. You post when you are going on vacation. You post when you are home alone. You post your pet's name, your birthday, your best friend's name, your mother's maiden name, without knowing you are doing it. You think privacy is boring until someone uses what you gave them. You think no one is watching because no one comments. That is adorable. People are always watching. Some are just quieter than others. And stop posting where you are in real time. Post later if you must. Post when you are gone. Post when the place is behind you, not when you are sitting there with your drink, smiling into the camera while the background shows the door, the street sign, and the person you came with. I have seen people announce their own isolation to the world. Solo trip. Needed a night away from everyone. Phone might die, but I'm fine. No, you are not fine. You are broadcasting an invitation and calling it content. There is one exception to keeping your location private. The people who love you should know where you are. Tell a friend. Tell a sibling. Tell your roommate. Tell someone who would notice if you did not come home. Share the address. Share the name. Share the plan. Tell them when you expect to leave. If the plan changes, update them. It is deeply disappointing when someone vanishes and no one comes looking. I mean that from the bottom of whatever black thing sits where my heart should be. There is no challenge in taking someone no one checks on. No pressure. No ticking clock. No worried phone calls. No one saying she always answers. No one calling the restaurant. No one driving by the last place he was seen. No one noticing the silence until the trail is cold. That kind of loneliness is so heavy, it almost ruins the mood. Almost, you think being independent means not telling anyone your business. You think safety plans are childish. You think checking in makes you look weak. It does not. It makes you inconvenient. Inconvenient people survive longer. Stop watching true crime like it is a training course. This one makes me laugh and irritates me at the same time. You sit on your couches, wrapped in blankets, eating snacks, watching documentaries about famous killers, and somehow you walk away thinking you understand danger. You do not. You know names. You know old cases. You know the same handful of monsters people keep turning into content. You know what was discovered after it was already too late. That is not the same thing as knowing how to stay alive. Most famous killers were not geniuses. Many of them were sloppy, arrogant, careless, or lucky. The world around them failed again and again. People ignored signs. Police missed things. Victims were dismissed. Communities looked away. The killers became legends later because people love a story with a monster in the middle. But the lesson should not be, I would have spotted him. Would you? Are you sure? Because everyone says that. Everyone thinks they would know. Everyone thinks they would feel it. Everyone thinks they would not be tricked by the charming man, the sad man, the helpful man, the nervous man, the handsome man, the woman who seems harmless, the stranger who needs a favor, the date who says, just come with me for a minute. People watch stories about death and mistake fear for wisdom. They learn the wrong details. They remember the names of killers but forget the names of victims. They repeat the methods and the timelines and the creepy little facts, but they do not learn the simple truth underneath all of it. Danger often begins as discomfort, a bad feeling, a pause that goes on too long, a smile that does not reach the eyes, a plan that changes too quickly, a person who presses after you hesitate, a voice in your head saying, I do not like this. Which brings me to the advice I hate giving most. Trust your instincts. I hate that sentence because everyone says it. Every safety article says it. Every cop says it. Every parent says it. It has been repeated so many times that people roll their eyes when they hear it. But they are right. And that makes me angry. Because every person I have ever killed knew something was wrong. Do you understand that? Every single one. Maybe not in clear words, maybe not in a full thought. But somewhere in their body, some old animal part of them knew. Their shoulders tightened. Their smile faltered. Their stomach dropped. Their hand moved toward their phone. Their eyes flicked to the door. Then they talked themselves out of it. They said, I'm being rude. They said, he seems nice. They said, she probably didn't mean it. They said, I already agreed. They said, I don't want to make a scene. They said, it'll only be a few minutes. That is all I usually need. A few minutes. Politeness is one of the best weapons ever placed in my hands. Not my politeness. Yours, your need to make other people comfortable, has done more for me than any tool I have ever carried. You will stand in discomfort until it becomes fear, then stand in fear until it becomes danger, then stand in danger because leaving would feel embarrassing. I cannot tell you how many times I have watched someone choose manners over survival. It is almost beautiful. Almost, there is a moment I love. I should not tell you this, but I will. There is always a moment when the person realizes. Not suspects, not wonders. Realizes the room changes for them. The air goes thin. Their eyes sharpen. Their body finally catches up with what their instincts knew 10 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe an hour before. They look at me differently, and I can almost hear the thought, I should have left. That is the moment that keeps me interested, not the end. People think people like me care most about the end. We do not. The end is often messy, loud, and practical. The interesting part is the shift. The second the mask drops, or maybe the second they understand there was never a mask at all, the second their own choices line up behind them like locked doors. That is why I am asking you to do better. Make the moment harder to reach. Make me work. Say no. Leave early. Cancel the date. Ask the question. Embarrass yourself. Tell the bartender. Call the friend. Take the public route. Do not explain so much. Stop apologizing when you are uncomfortable. Stop giving strangers the benefit of the doubt just because you want to believe the world is gentle. The world is not gentle. It has gentle things in it, yes, good people. Soft moments, safe rooms, friends who answer the phone, dogs sleeping by warm beds, mothers who wait up, fathers who check the locks, neighbors who notice when the porch light stays off too long. But the world itself? No. The world is teeth under velvet. You can live in it, but only if you stop pretending the teeth are not there. So write this down if you have to. Put it in your phone. Tape it to your mirror. Whisper it to yourself before you meet someone new. Do not trust too fast. Do not go where no one can see you. Do not let charm blind you. Do not mistake carrying protection for being prepared. Do not give away your life one post at a time. Tell someone where you are. Do not confuse true crime with true understanding. Trust the thing inside you that says, leave. Please, I am saying please, and I almost never say please. Please make this interesting again. Please stop walking straight into the dark while holding the door open behind you. Please stop smiling at people like me because you are afraid silence will be awkward. Please stop making it so easy. Because if you keep doing this, if you keep ignoring every warning your body gives you, if you keep choosing comfort over survival, then there is nothing left for me to prove. And I hate that. I need the chase to matter. I need the art back. I need the world to remember that fear is not always weakness. Sometimes, fear is the last honest friend you have. So listen to it. Or don't. I suppose, either way, I will be waiting. Story 3. My friends and I went camping in the woods of Georgia because at the time it sounded like a great idea. We had all been talking about it for weeks. None of us had done anything fun in a while, and one of my friends, Marcus, kept saying that we needed to get away from work, bills, phones, and everything else that made life feel heavy. He said we should go somewhere quiet, somewhere deep in the woods where we could drink, tell stories, cook over a fire, and pretend we were tougher than we really were. I should have known better. I had never liked the woods at night. During the day, forests can look peaceful. Sunlight falls through the trees. Birds move in the branches. You can hear insects, leaves, and the soft sound of your own steps on the dirt. But at night, the woods become something else. Every tree looks like a person standing still. Every sound feels close. Every shadow seems like it is waiting for you to look away. Still, I went. There were 5 of us in total: Marcus, Drew, Caleb, Owen, and me. We also brought along a man named Harris, who was not exactly part of the friend group. He was older than us, quiet and serious. Drew knew him through some hunting club, and he insisted Harris should come with us for safety because the area had bears, coyotes, and the usual kind of dangerous wildlife people like to pretend they are not afraid of until they hear something moving outside a tent at 3 in the morning. Harris had a rifle, a long-range scope, and the calmest eyes I had ever seen. He was the kind of man who did not waste words. When we first met him, he shook our hands, looked over our gear, and said, "Stay near the fire after dark." That was almost the longest sentence he said all day. We drove out in the afternoon and reached the campsite before sunset. The place was far from the main road, deep enough that my phone had no service before we even parked. The trees were thick, tall, and black-barked in places. Pine needles covered the ground, and the air smelled like damp soil, smoke, and old leaves. It was colder than we expected. The kind of cold that slips into your sleeves and under your collar no matter how many layers you wear. By the time we had the tents up and the fire going, the sky had gone dark. And I mean dark. Out there, away from streetlights and houses, darkness is not just the absence of light. It feels like a physical thing. It presses around you from every side. The fire made a small orange circle around our camp, but beyond that circle, the trees stood packed together in black rows. Anything could have been watching us from 10 feet away, and we would not have known. At first, it was fun. We sat around the fire, passing food around, drinking from cans, and laughing too loudly. Marcus told a ridiculous story about a fishing trip that none of us believed. Caleb kept pretending he heard banjo music in the woods, which got less funny every time the branches cracked behind us. Owen tried to scare us with some story about a ghost woman who walked along creek beds. Harris sat on a log near the edge of the firelight, cleaning his rifle and listening without smiling. The longer the night went on, the colder it got. Around midnight, the fire started dying down. The flames were getting low, and the heat was weakening fast. We had collected firewood earlier, but we had burned through more than we expected. Everyone looked at the shrinking pile beside the fire, then at each other, waiting for someone else to volunteer. I do not know why I stood up. Maybe I wanted to look braver than I was. Maybe I was tired of sitting there shivering. Maybe I had drunk just enough to make the woods seem less dangerous than they were. "I'll grab some more," I said. Harris looked up from where he sat. "Don't go far." "I won't." He reached toward his bag, probably for a better flashlight, but I had already picked up my own. It was a cheap little flashlight I had bought from a gas station. The beam was weak and yellow, barely strong enough to cut through the dark. I stepped away from the campfire. The cold got worse almost immediately. Behind me, my friends kept talking, their voices wrapped in the crackle of the fire. With every step, those voices got softer. The orange glow faded behind the trees. Soon, the only thing I had was that thin beam of light and the sound of my boots pressing into leaves and pine needles. I found a few fallen branches, but most of them were damp. I kept walking, telling myself I would only go a little farther. Then I heard water. It was faint at first, a soft rushing sound somewhere ahead. I stopped and listened. Running water in the woods has a strange pull to it. It sounds peaceful, but that night it also sounded secret, like something hidden was waiting just beyond the trees. I should have turned back with the few sticks I had. I should have listened to Harris and stayed close to the fire. Instead, curiosity got the better of me. I followed the sound. The trees grew thicker. Bushes scratched at my jeans. The flashlight shook in my hand as I pushed through low branches. The sound of water became clearer, though it was not exactly rushing. It was more like a small stream feeding into a pond, soft and steady. Then the trees opened. I stepped into a small clearing and saw a hidden pond. It was dark and still except where a narrow stream ran into it. The surface reflected the moon in broken silver pieces. Mist hovered above the water, and the trees leaned over the edges like they were trying to look inside. At first, I thought the huge black shape in the middle of the pond was a fallen tree. Then it moved. My blood went cold. A massive black bear stood in the water. It was bigger than any bear I had ever seen in a zoo or on TV. Its shoulders were huge, rising like a dark hill out of the pond. Water dripped from its fur. Its head was lowered, and its paws held something pale against its mouth. For 1 second, my brain refused to understand what I was seeing. Then, the flashlight beam shook across the thing in its paws. It was part of a human body, a girl, a dead girl. The bear was holding her leg and eating from it. My body locked in place. I could not move. I could not breathe. A scream rose into my throat, but nothing came out. I wanted to look away, but my eyes would not obey me. Then the bear spoke. Actually spoke. Its jaw moved in a way no animal's jaw should move. Each word came with a wet, cracking sound, like bones snapping deep inside its mouth. The voice was horrible. It was part deep animal growl and part human voice, choked and strained, like a man trying to talk while drowning. "Did you have to see me talking?" it said. The bear turned the dead girl's leg in its paws and took another bite. Was that really necessary? I stumbled back and pressed myself behind the nearest tree. My hands were shaking so badly the flashlight beam danced wildly across the ground. I turned it off with my thumb, afraid the light would give me away. Darkness swallowed me at once. The bear kept talking to the corpse. "You know I'm a predator," it said. "You know I love meat. It's your fault I killed you." I covered my mouth with one hand. The voice went on, calm and angry at the same time. "What were you even doing out this late anyway, walking around in my woods like that? It's like you wanted me to do it." My mind kept repeating the same impossible thought. A talking bear. A talking bear. That could not be real. It had to be some sick joke. A person in a costume. A recording. A hallucination. Maybe I had drunk more than I thought. Maybe someone had slipped something into my drink. Maybe the cold had gotten to me. But then I smelled it. rotting meat, wet fur. Blood, something so strong and dead that it crawled into my mouth and sat on my tongue. No hallucination smells like that. I stood behind the tree, shaking so hard my knees nearly gave out. I told myself to back away slowly. Just a few steps, then a few more, then run when I was far enough. I moved 1 foot behind me. Then the branch snapped. It was a small sound. In the normal world, it would have been nothing. In that clearing, it sounded like a gunshot. The bear stopped chewing. The pond went still. For a second, there was only silence. Then its huge head snapped toward me. I froze. Its eyes found me in the dark. They were not animal eyes. I know what animal eyes look like in a flashlight beam or moonlight. They shine, but they do not think the way human eyes think. These eyes were different. They were dark, smart, and full of hate. There was understanding in them. Worse than that, there was judgment. It knew I had heard it. It knew I had seen what it really was. The bear dropped the remains into the water. Slowly, it stood on its hind legs. Water ran from its fur in streams. Its body rose higher and higher until it seemed too tall to be real. The smell rolled toward me, thick and rotten. It took 1 step through the pond, then another. Each step made the water ripple outward. I tried to move, but my body would not listen. The bear came closer. When it reached the edge of the pond, it dropped back onto all fours and walked toward my tree. It moved too quietly for something that large. The only sound was its breathing and the soft crack of its jaw working side to side, as if speaking had damaged it. It stopped right in front of me. I could see its mouth. I could see pieces of meat caught in its teeth. I could see steam rising from its nostrils in the cold air. Then it spoke again. Another listener. Its voice was calmer now. That made it worse. Do you people have no respect for these woods? I stepped back, but my heel hit the roots of the tree. I didn't see anything, I whispered. The bear tilted its head. Its jaw cracked. No, it said. You heard. Then its face changed. Not physically, exactly. It was still a bear. But something behind its eyes shifted from calm annoyance to pure rage. It opened its mouth wide, wider than any mouth should open, and let out a roar that was not only a roar. It was a human scream twisted inside an animal's throat. I turned and ran. Branches tore at my face. I crashed through the trees with no idea where I was going. The little flashlight bounced in my hand. Useless now. I could hear the bear behind me, heavy but fast, breaking through the brush. But the worst part was not the chase. The worst part was its voice. It sounded right beside my ear. You're making me run in this cold. I screamed and ran harder. This is so disrespectful. Its jaw cracked around every word. No matter how fast I ran, no matter how many trees I dodged, the voice stayed close. Sometimes it came from behind me, sometimes from my left, sometimes from my right. Once, it sounded above me, like the bear was running through the branches. You come into my woods, it growled. You spy on my dinner, then you run like I'm the rude one. I tripped over a root and hit the ground hard. Pain shot through my knees and palms. I scrambled up before I even felt it fully. Behind me, something huge smashed into a tree. Bark exploded. The tree groaned but did not fall. I did not look back. I kept running until my lungs burned and my throat tasted like blood. I was crying by then, not just from fear, but from pure exhaustion. Every breath hurt. My legs felt weak. The dark seemed endless. For a terrible moment, I thought I had run the wrong way and would never find camp again. Then I saw orange light through the trees, the campfire. I burst into the clearing and collapsed beside it. I hit the ground on my hands and knees, sobbing and gagging. Then I threw up from fear and running and the memory of what I had seen at the pond. Everyone jumped awake or stood up at once. Harris moved faster than any of us. He grabbed his rifle and aimed into the darkness before anyone else even understood something was wrong. Marcus shouted my name. Drew asked what happened. Caleb kept saying, "What? What?" I could not speak at first. I only pointed toward the trees. Harris stepped closer to the edge of the firelight, rifle ready. The woods beyond the camp were black. Nothing came into the light, but I know it was there. I could feel it watching. Then, from somewhere beyond the trees, I heard a soft crack, a jaw shifting. Harris heard it too. His face tightened. For several long seconds, nobody moved. Then the sound faded back into the deep woods. The bear did not come closer. It slipped away into the dark. I told them everything. At first, they thought I was panicking because I had seen a bear eating something. Then, I told them it had spoken. I told them about the dead girl. I told them the exact words it had said, the way it blamed her, the way it mocked me while chasing me. Nobody laughed. Maybe it was my face. Maybe it was the vomit on my jacket. Maybe it was Harris, who kept staring into the trees like he believed more than he wanted to. We did not sleep the rest of the night. Harris kept watch with the rifle. The rest of us sat close to the fire, throwing every piece of wood we had onto it until the flames were high and wild. Every time something cracked in the woods, we flinched. Every time the wind moved through the branches, I thought I heard that voice again. At first light, we packed up and got out. Nobody argued. Nobody wanted breakfast. Nobody said we were overreacting. We shoved the tents into the truck half folded, left behind things we did not want to waste time grabbing, and drove away from those woods as fast as the road allowed. I thought leaving would make the fear stop. It did not. For the next 2 weeks, I lived like a hunted animal. Every dark corner looked like it could hold black fur and human eyes. Every creak in the house made me grab a knife. I slept during the day when I could, and stayed awake at night listening. I locked my bedroom door. I pushed my dresser in front of it. I nailed my windows shut from the inside. For the first few nights, I slept in my bed with the lights on. Then even that did not feel safe. After that, I slept under the bed, curled up with a knife in my hand, waiting for that cracked voice to come through the walls. Some nights, I thought I heard it. Not clearly, not close. Just a whisper in the dark. You people have no respect. I barely ate. I stopped answering texts. My friends tried to check on me, but I did not want to talk. What could I say? That I was afraid a talking bear from the Georgia woods had followed me home? That I expected it to crawl through my window and blame me for making it hungry? I knew how that sounded. So I kept quiet. Then, early one morning, I was jolted awake by my mother screaming in the kitchen. My whole body reacted before my brain did. I scrambled out from under the bed, grabbed the knife, and ran barefoot into the hallway. My heart felt like it had stopped. I was sure this was it. The bear had found the house. It had broken in. It was downstairs, standing over my mother, explaining why it was her fault. I flew down the stairs with the knife gripped so tightly my knuckles hurt. But there was no monster. There was only my mother. She was standing in the kitchen in her robe, red-faced and furious, yelling at the TV. This awful generation of criminals. She shouted, "What is wrong with people?" I stopped at the bottom of the stairs, shaking. For 1 second, relief almost knocked me over. Then I looked at the TV. A breaking news report was playing. The anchor was talking about a bear found dead deep in the Georgia woods. At first, the words did not fully register. Then the name appeared on the screen. Gentle George. My stomach dropped. Everybody in that part of Georgia knew Gentle George. He was famous, a state icon, people called him, the oldest black bear in the area. He had been seen near hiking trails and campgrounds for years. Rangers had tracked him. Tourists took pictures of him from a safe distance. Local news stations had run cute little stories about him. They said he was calm, harmless, almost sweet. Gentle George, the beloved bear, the harmless giant. The whole state was already acting like a celebrity had died. But then the report showed more details. The anchor's voice lowered. Police and park rangers had found the bear hanging from a massive pine tree far from the main trails. The killing was being described as deliberate, an execution. The bear had been shot 3 times in each shoulder and 3 times in each knee before being strung up. My mother kept talking about cruelty, about sick people, about how anyone who could do that to an animal deserved prison. I could not speak. The TV showed a photo of Gentle George from when he was alive, a huge black bear standing near a tree line, head turned toward the camera. Those eyes. Smart, human, evil. There was no doubt in my mind. It was him, the bear from the pond. The same bear that had stood in the water eating a dead girl while blaming her for her own death. The same bear that had chased me through the dark, mocking me for making it run. The same bear everyone thought was gentle. Someone out there knew. Someone had figured out his secret. Maybe they found the girl. Maybe they had been watching him longer than anyone knew. Maybe Gentle George had been doing this for years, hiding behind his cute reputation while bodies disappeared in the woods. Maybe every missing hiker, every strange accident, every scream people dismissed as wildlife had been him. And someone finally decided to end it. The knife slipped from my hand. It hit the kitchen floor with a loud clatter. My mother turned and stared at me. "What on earth is wrong with you?" I could not answer. For the first time in 2 weeks, the crushing weight on my chest lifted. I could breathe. Really breathe. The fear did not disappear completely, but it cracked open enough to let air in. Gentle George was dead. The thing from the pond would never stand outside my window. It would never whisper in my ear again. It would never use that broken human voice to blame someone while tearing them apart. I walked back upstairs slowly. My room looked different in the morning light. Smaller, less like a hiding place. The dresser was still pushed against the door. The windows were still nailed shut. The bed was a mess from all the nights I had spent under it instead of on it. I pulled the nails out of the window frame one by one. Then I threw the windows wide open. Fresh air came in, cool and clean. Sunlight spilled across the floor. For the first time since that night in the woods, I left my bedroom door open. Then I lay down on top of my bed and stared at the ceiling. Right before sleep took me, the image of the dead girl by the pond returned. I saw the pale shape in the bear's paws. I heard that awful voice asking why she had to see him talking. I thought about how scared she must have been in her final moments. alone in the dark with something that spoke like a person but fed like an animal. For a moment, my eyes filled with tears. Then I smiled faintly. Not because any of it was good, not because what happened to Gentle George was clean or kind, but because somewhere out there, somebody had made sure he would never hurt anyone again. I whispered into the quiet room, "Finally, you got your revenge." Then I closed my eyes. For the first time in 2 weeks, I slept deeply, peacefully, without the knife, without the lights on, without hearing that cracked jaw whispering from the dark. Gentle George would never speak again. At least, that is what I believed. For 3 days, everything was calm. I ate again. I showered without leaving the bathroom door open. I answered my friends' messages. Marcus told me Harris had gone quiet after the trip, too. None of us really talked about what happened, but we all knew something had changed. Some things are too strange to explain, even to the people who were there. On the fourth morning, I woke to birds outside my window. The air was warm. The house was quiet. I sat up, rubbed my face, and almost laughed at how normal everything felt. Then, I saw something on my windowsill. At first, I thought it was mud. I stood and walked closer. It was not mud. It was a strip of black fur, wet and matted, stuck to the outside of the window frame. Beside it, scratched into the wood, was something sharp, or 5 words. My blood turned cold as I read them. You made me famous. From somewhere far away, maybe outside, maybe in my own head, I heard the faint crack of a jaw. Then, a whisper. This is so disrespectful. Story 4. It has been 37 days. The walls in this apartment feel closer every morning. I do not remember them feeling like this before. I do not remember the ceiling being so low, or the hallway being so narrow, or the rooms holding the same stale air no matter how many windows I open. Every time I wake up, it feels like I am breathing dust. My throat feels dry. My eyes burn. This morning, they looked redder than they did yesterday, even though I have barely been going to work. My feet hurt all the time. I do not know if it is from walking too much, or pacing too much, or standing too long in front of my own walls, staring at the notes I have taped everywhere. I sleep, but it does not feel like sleep. My dreams are heavy. They press down on me. They do not pass through my mind like normal dreams. They sit on my chest and wait for me to wake up. Since my brother left, I have searched everywhere I know to search. I have been on every strange website I remember him and his friends using. Old forums with broken links, message boards with names that look like jokes until you stay on them long enough. Pages about meditation, enlightenment, hidden paths, old Buddhist texts, and things that pretend to be spiritual, but feel more like traps if you read them after midnight. I have followed every clue I could remember him mentioning, and every time I think I am close, the path bends away from me. At this point, it would be easier for me to believe I might find a rabbit at the end of this chase than my brother. His name is Barry. I remember that clearly. I know I do. I remember the way he said his own name when he was making fun of himself. I remember the way he dragged out the first syllable when he was tired. I remember him leaning against my bedroom door when we were kids, telling me some stupid fact he had learned online and acting like it was the most important thing in the world. I have spent late nights and early mornings retracing the places he used to talk about. The old websites, the spiritual essays, the forums full of people who said they had seen something behind the world. At first, I was only looking for him. Then, slowly, I began to remember a phrase that seemed important to him: to relieve the world of suffering. That phrase kept appearing, not always in the same place, not always written the same way, but close enough. I could feel it glowing in the back of my mind. Barry had been fixed on it. He believed suffering was not just something people had to live with. He believed it was something that could be removed, like a sickness, if only people were brave enough to see the truth. He was afraid the people he loved would never find that relief. I remember him trying to find peace for himself. He would go on long hiking trips without much warning. Sometimes he joined communes for a few months. Sometimes he came back thinner, calmer, and stranger than before. He would sit at our table, drinking tea, talking about how the world made people crazy because it forced them to want things that could never make them whole. My parents always acted like this was just Barry being Barry. He had been gone for a week when I first noticed something was wrong. If it had been one of his regular trips, I would not have worried. Barry disappearing for a while was not new, but this time he had not told me. He had not sent one of his vague messages. He had not left me some cryptic link or said, "Do not worry if I am hard to reach." So one night when I was having dinner with my parents, I asked if they had heard from him. This was about 3 weeks ago. I lived with him at the time. I know I did. I remember the house. I remember Barry's old room. I remember watching cartoons with him on the TV in the living room. I remember where he sat at the dinner table when he visited. I remember how he always pushed his chair back too far and how Mom would tell him he was going to scratch the floor. My family expected Barry to be distant. He had gone weeks without contacting us before. So when I asked where he had been, I expected them to say they did not know. I expected them to sigh and say he was probably with friends, or camping, or doing some strange spiritual thing he would explain badly later. Instead, they looked at me like I had said something cruel by accident. My mother put her fork down. My father stopped chewing. Then my mother told me Barry was the name of their first child. She said he died on November 6, 2001, in her arms, 30 minutes after he was born. For a few seconds, I thought I had heard her wrong. Then she asked if I had seen him. She said she and Dad used to imagine what he might have looked like if he had grown older. She said it would be understandable if I had pictured him that way too. She said grief could do strange things, even grief we thought we had not carried. She said loneliness could make the mind build people when it needed them. I told her no. I told her it was not like that. I told her Barry was my brother, their son. He had grown up with me. He had sat at that table. He had lived in the room down the hall. They should have known him as well as they knew me. That was when they looked at me like I had told them I saw Bigfoot in the backyard. Then, my mom had the nerve to ask if I had been feeling all right. She asked if I had been eating. She asked if I was sleeping. She asked if work was stressing me out. My father gave me one of his soft, concerned lectures. He told me I needed to learn how to ask for help. He said moving into adulthood could be hard. He said leaving school and trying to figure out the future could make people feel lost. I told him I did not know what he meant. I told him my life was fine. I told him I was planning to move out soon, and I did not think they should put so much pressure on me when I had only left high school 3 months ago. After I said that, the room went quiet in a different way. Not confused quiet, afraid quiet. They did not answer me. My mother started picking up dishes. My father stood and put food away. When I tried to help them, they both moved away from me, like they were afraid I might break something or do something sudden. I thought maybe they were sick. I thought maybe some flu had gotten into their heads and made them foggy. For about an hour, I sat with them and watched TV. I let myself believe the couch was comfortable. I let myself believe the house was familiar. I let myself believe there was nothing in time that would come looking for me. Then I checked my email. There were messages from a landlord I had never met. He said I was late on rent for an apartment I had never signed a lease for. He used my first name. The first email was rude. The next one was still rude, but almost apologetic, the way normal people become when they think they have gone too far but do not want to admit it. He talked to me like he knew me, or at least like he knew the person who paid him every month. That was when I understood something terrible. There was someone on the other side of that email who knew someone with my name, someone with my address, my email, my rent, my life. But the person he knew was not me. I had money, so I paid him. Then I went to the apartment. It was the same building where I remembered Barry living. I remembered helping him move in. I remembered taking a picture with him that day, both of us standing in the narrow kitchen, laughing because the place smelled like old carpet and someone else's cigarettes. I remembered staying with him that evening while he lit incense and told me it would cleanse the apartment of bad energy. I expected the place to smell like his incense. I expected books stacked on the floor. I expected one of those slow foreign films he loved playing on the TV. Something banned somewhere for reasons he would explain with too much excitement. But when I opened the door, I felt something else. It was like someone was controlling my spine. Not all of me, not my hands or my face, just something deep inside my body that already knew where to go. It sent reminders to my brain before I had time to ask for them. That is where your laundry basket is. That is your bedside table. That is where you keep the mugs. That is where your shoes go. The apartment knew me, or something inside me knew the apartment. I stood in the doorway, and I felt my heart do something strange. If you have ever been on a roller coaster and felt your heart jump because your body thinks you are about to fall to your death, this was the opposite. My heart felt like it was slowing down. It felt like it was trying to calm me. It felt like it wanted to convince me that the sights and smells and feelings of this place were real, and that the life I remembered before it was the dream. That night, I searched my phone for proof of Barry. I looked for pictures. I looked for voicemails. I checked old messages. I searched every contact, every number, every social app, every place his name should have been. I needed one thing, one photo, one message, one missed call, one stupid link from him at 2 a.m, one piece of proof that he had existed outside my head. I found nothing. But I did find something else that night. I had a dream. In the dream, I was walking on a nature trail that led into a public park. I felt like I was supposed to meet Barry there. Not in a dramatic way. It felt ordinary, like he had texted me and said to meet him by his car. The trail curved, and as I followed it, the trees in front of me disappeared. Not like they were cut down, not like they faded. It was more like I lost the ability to notice them. My mind slid off them, and then they were gone. When I reached the parking lot, it was full of people I knew from high school. They rushed past me, bumping into my shoulders, all of them going somewhere I could not see. In the back of the crowd, I thought I saw my brother. His car was not there, but I knew it was him. Then I started feeling hot, not warm, targeted like someone had placed a mark between my shoulder blades. Behind me, I heard a man loading magazines into a gun. I could hear the click and slide of metal. I tried to move, but my body would not obey. My brother seemed to come closer through the crowd, but he did not move any faster. He drifted toward me while the man behind me prepared the gun. Then, Barry stepped fully into view. At the same moment, the man behind me changed. I had thought he was a man with a body, but he became smoke and shadow. His shape held together only because something wanted me to believe it was human. Somehow, I barely noticed that the thing in front of me was not made of dust or smoke or anything with weight or smell. The man shot me. I woke up. Since that dream, there has not been a single day where I have felt rested. At night, I return to the apartment, and for a few moments I can almost hear Barry's odd way of speaking. I hear him explaining the universe in that slow, careful tone, as if the right words could open a locked door inside my head. When I lie down to sleep, small memories flash through my mind. Lunch with Barry. Barry holding a paper cup of tea. Barry laughing at something on his phone. Barry standing in the doorway with that distant look he had when his thoughts were already somewhere else. The memories became so small that I started to wonder if he was an imaginary friend. Maybe I invented him as a child. Maybe I made him because I was lonely. Maybe living alone had brought him back. Maybe the nightmares in the cold apartment had pulled him out of the old parts of my mind. But that explanation felt wrong. So I began sketching him. I tried to draw the picture I remembered from the day he moved into the apartment, the one I had lost. I drew his face from memory again and again. At first, the drawings were bad. Then, they became familiar. I put them on sticky notes and taped them everywhere. On the fridge, on the walls, on the front door, on the TV, on the bathroom mirror. Everywhere I looked, Barry looked back. When I came home from work, something strange would come over me. It felt like the weight of the day was being lifted from my shoulders. The apartment would become quiet. The sketches would seem to guide me, piece by piece, toward the last steps my brother had taken. That phrase returned again and again. To relieve the world of suffering. I began to feel that it had been part of Barry's life, but not just as an idea. It was a mission, a plan, something larger than him, something he had tried to understand before he disappeared. My parents started visiting me sometimes. They could not ignore the sketches. At first, they asked about him gently. They asked what Barry did for work. They asked what foods he liked. They asked about his hobbies. I think they were trying to treat it like therapy. Maybe they thought if they let me talk about him, they could understand the shape of whatever was wrong with me. It was almost charming to them at first. Then I told them about his mission. After that, they could not pretend anymore. You need help, they told me. They said I needed real friends. They said I needed a counselor. They said I needed someone who could remind me what the real world was. When they said that, I saw something in their eyes. A man. Not a normal man. Not a person standing behind them or reflected in the glass. A formless man. A shape behind their pupils, made of something I did not understand. Looking at him reminded me of memories I never had. Memories of sanity being captured, taken apart, and rearranged into something that still looked human from a distance. I stopped talking. My parents said more things, but I could not hear them. Their mouths moved. Their eyes held that man. I knew they had brought him with them, or he had used them, or he had always been there and I was only now able to see him. They left soon after. But the man did not. I asked people on Barry's websites about him. They knew exactly who I meant. Many of them had seen him too. They said he lives in the eyes of ordinary people. People at work. People walking their dogs. Parents taking children to the park. Cashiers, doctors, teachers, friends. He wants mankind to believe he is like them. But my friends and I know that cannot be true. In searching for my brother, I found his mission. I want you to believe this, because I know how it sounds. I know what my parents would say. I know what a counselor would write down. But the world can overcome its suffering. It can become free from insanity. It can wake up from whatever has been placed inside it. I found the truth in another dream. In that dream, someone was driving me to work. I felt anxious and full of dread, but I had come to expect that feeling from work. The road was gray. The windows looked too bright. The car smelled like dust and old fabric. But beneath the fear, I knew something else. I was not really being taken to work. I was being taken to paradise. I turned toward the driver's seat, and Barry was there. Seeing him again hurt me in a way I cannot explain. It was not joy. It was not relief. It was like a locked room inside me had suddenly opened and found someone standing there, waiting. He looked different from the drawings I had made. Not completely different. He was still Barry. I knew him in the way you know a person before you even see their face clearly. But there were details I had forgotten. Details my sketches had failed to catch. He had a small bump on his nose. I remembered it the second I saw it. I had left it out of every drawing. That scared me more than anything else in the dream, because it meant he was not only something I had invented from memory. He had details my memory had lost. He was more complete than the version of him I could create. He kept his hands on the wheel and watched the road. "You forgot my nose," he said. I wanted to laugh or cry or apologize. Instead, I asked him where he had gone. He did not answer right away. The car passed buildings I did not recognize. They were tall and flat and windowless, like no one had ever lived inside them. The sky above us was white, not cloudy, just empty. I looked for other cars, but the road was clean and still. Barry finally said, "I went where suffering ends." His voice was soft, not happy, not sad, just certain. I asked him if he was dead. He smiled at that, but only a little. "No," he said, "death is one of the lies they use to keep you afraid." I looked out the window. The buildings had become trees, but not real trees. They were thin and gray and perfectly still, and their branches bent toward the car as we passed. "Mom said you died," I told him. "She said you died when you were born." Barry nodded, as if he had expected that. "They would say that now. They remember you as a baby," I said. "They don't remember you growing up. That is because they have been relieved of me." I turned toward him. "What does that mean?" He did not look at me. "It means the world removed what it could not explain." The dream shifted then. I was no longer sure we were in a car. The seat beneath me felt soft, then hard, then soft again. The road ahead stretched like a black ribbon through a field of white light. Barry's hands were still on the wheel, but his fingers looked too long for a moment, then normal again. I asked him if he was real. He laughed quietly. That is the question they taught you to ask. Who? The man in their eyes. The moment he said it, I saw him again. The formless man. Not in the car, not sitting behind us, but in the rearview mirror. He had no face, only the suggestion of one. He was smoke and shadow and memory, and he was watching me like he had always been watching me. I tried to scream, but Barry reached over and touched my arm. The fear stopped, not faded. Stopped, like someone had turned a switch inside me. You are close, Barry said. To what? To helping. I woke up before he answered. After that dream, everything in the apartment felt different. The sticky notes no longer looked like drawings I had made in desperation. They looked like markers, instructions AMAP made from the same face over and over. Barry's face, watching from every wall, reminding me not to forget. I stopped going to work as often. When I did go, the formless man was everywhere. He was in my manager's eyes when she asked if I was okay. He was in the woman at the coffee shop who smiled too politely. He was in the man who held the door open for me and said, "Have a good one," as if those words meant anything. He was even in the children at the park, though with them he seemed weaker, like he had not settled all the way in yet. That is how I knew Barry had been right to be afraid. The people we love are not safe from suffering, because they do not even know where suffering comes from. They think pain belongs to them. They think fear belongs to them. They think loneliness, hunger, grief, anger, and memory are all natural parts of being alive. But what if they are not? What if they were put here? What if someone placed them inside us so we would never look too closely at the world? I know now why Barry left. He did not abandon me. He went ahead. He found the path and waited for me to notice the places where reality had been badly stitched together. My parents call every day now. Sometimes I answer and let them talk. Sometimes I only listen to the phone ring. Their voices on the messages sound frightened, but fear is not always proof of love. Sometimes fear is the sound people make when the thing inside them knows it has been seen. They want me to come home. But I am home. This apartment knows me. My body knows it. Barry knows it. The notes know it. The walls still feel cramped. The air is still stale. My eyes are still red. My dreams still press down on me every night. But now I understand that this discomfort is not punishment. It is pressure. It is the world trying to force me through a narrow opening. Barry said, "I am close." I believe him. Last night, I dreamed of the car again. This time, I was in the back seat. Barry was driving, and the formless man sat beside him. At first, I was afraid. I thought Barry had been captured. I thought the man had reached him somehow. But Barry looked calm. He drove with one hand, his eyes on the road, the bump on his nose clear in the pale light. The formless man turned toward me. Where his face should have been, there was only a moving blur, like smoke trapped under skin. He spoke in my father's voice first. "You need help." Then in my mother's, "You are not well." Then in my manager's, "You have missed too many shifts." Then in my own voice, "You made Barry up." I covered my ears, but the words came from inside my head. Barry looked at me in the mirror. "Do you see what he does?" he asked. I nodded. "He takes the shape of concern," Barry said. "That is how he survives." The formless man leaned closer. His body made no sound against the seat. "You are tired," he said in my voice. "You are lonely. You are sick." Barry smiled. "You are waking up," he said. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in the middle of the apartment. I do not remember getting out of bed. All the sticky notes had been taken down from the walls and placed on the floor in a wide circle around me. Every drawing of Barry faced inward. The apartment was quiet, except for my breathing. In the center of the circle, written in my own handwriting, was the phrase, "To relieve the world of suffering." I do not remember writing it there. But the letters were mine. My phone was in my hand. There were 17 missed calls from my parents, 5 from my manager, and 1 unknown number. There was also a text message from my father. "Please let us come over. We love you. We are scared." I stared at those words for a long time. Then I saw him. Not Barry. The other one. The formless man was behind the letters, behind the screen, behind the reflection of my own face in the black glass. He did not have eyes, but I knew he was looking at me. And for the first time, I did not feel afraid of him. I felt angry, because I understood then that Barry had not left me to suffer. Barry had given me a way to see the thing causing it. He had shown me the shape behind all the kind voices, all the worried faces, all the people telling me to come back to the world they called real. They do not want me well. They want me asleep. I do not know where Barry is yet. Not fully. But I know he is ahead of me. I know he is waiting somewhere beyond the cramped walls and stale air, somewhere beyond the dust in my lungs and the heavy dreams. I know he found the place where suffering ends. And if I follow carefully, if I keep watching the eyes, if I refuse the lies of concern and memory, I will find him. I will find him, and I will help him finish what he started. The world can be relieved of suffering. It has to be. Barry told me I am close. Story 5. They built a prison in the dark. It was 100 meters by 100 meters, a huge square cube made to hold something that should never have been brought to the surface. The walls were made of thick, reinforced acrylic glass, 3 feet deep, clear enough to see through, but strong enough to hold back the black water inside. Still, even that glass groaned under the pressure. Sometimes, late at night, when the whole facility was quiet, I could hear the walls creak and moan like they were tired of holding the ocean in place. The enclosure sat at the center of Echo 9, a hidden research base built under rock, steel, and 2,000 feet of deep sea. The tank looked less like a habitat and more like a well cut into the bottom of the world. Around the top rim, there was an observation deck where we stood and looked down into the water. At night, the water was the color of old steel. During the day, somehow, it looked even darker. It was blacker than ink, blacker than any shadow on land. Light went into it and seemed to die there. Most of the time, the surface was still, broken only by slow, twisting movements far below. There was only one living thing inside that tank. She was quiet most of the time, except when she screamed. By the 3rd day, the official notes said she was still refusing food. She moved around the edges of the enclosure at frightening speed, circling again and again as if searching for a weakness in the walls. The behavior was called perimeter testing, because scientists like to give cold names to desperate acts. Her breathing was uneven. The gills along her neck opened and closed too fast, which meant she was under extreme stress. Between 2 and 4 in the morning, she made long, low sounds that were mostly below human hearing. That night, the sounds were quieter than before. but more complex. She still had not slept, or maybe she did not need sleep at all. I did not volunteer for Echo 9. I was selected. That was the word they used. Selected, like I had been given an honor. My transfer papers came with a classification level so high that even looking at it made me feel like I had been marked. No one told me what Echo 9 really was before I arrived. No one told me what had been found in the deep water. No one told me what they had dragged up from the place where sunlight never reaches. When I got there, they gave me a badge, a tablet, and a seat behind 3 inches of glass that felt much thinner than it should have. Officially, she did not have a name. In the records, she was called C1, short for Capture 1. A specimen. That word always felt wrong to me. A specimen is something you place in a jar, something you pin to a board, something dead enough or simple enough that you do not feel guilty cutting it open. She was not simple. And she was not dead. The lower-level technicians were the first to call her Echo. They were the ones who sat with the hydrophones all night and listened to her sounds shake the water. They started saying the name in quiet voices during shift changes, then in the break room over bad coffee. Soon, everyone was saying it, though never in front of the officers. Echo, it was too poetic for the military, maybe, but it fit her. She looked like something thrown back at us by time itself, a twisted reflection of what we might once have been, or a warning of what we might become if the world changed in some terrible way. The first time I saw her, she was floating in the dead center of the tank. She was completely still, suspended in the salt water with her long limbs hanging loose beneath her. Her body was pale in the weak tank lights, almost gray, almost blue. Her eyes were open, 2 black pools that did not reflect anything human back at me. I was sure she was dead. Then she blinked. I have never forgotten that moment. It was such a small movement, but it changed everything. Before that blink, I could pretend I was looking at an animal. A strange animal, yes, but still an animal. Something to study, something distant from me. After she blinked, I knew she was looking back. Dr. Melina Weiss arrived 10 days after Echo had been brought in. She was not military. She had trained with the UN, and people spoke about her like she was some kind of miracle. She was a linguist, a behavior expert, and a specialist in non-human communication. She was fluent in 9 languages and was in the middle of writing her 6th book about language structures outside normal human speech when the call came. She moved through Echo 9 like a woman who did not want to be there, but understood that the decision had already been made for her by powerful people far away from the ocean. On her 2nd day, she asked to go into the tank. No one argued, not because we thought it was safe, because all of us, in some quiet way, were terrified of what Echo might do if we kept refusing her contact. We stood on the observation deck and watched as Melina was lowered into the dark water wearing a custom dive suit. She carried no weapon. The only things on her belt were waterproof flashcards and communication tools. Looking back, I still do not know if that was bravery or madness. Maybe those 2 things are closer than we like to admit. Echo did not move at first. She hung in the water, motionless, watching Melina descend. When Melina reached the middle of the tank, Echo began to circle her. She did not move like a shark. There was no quick hunger in her. She did not move like a dolphin either. There was no friendly curiosity. Her movement was slow, steady, and impossible to ignore. It felt like watching a cold current take shape. She circled Melina again and again, not touching, not attacking, just studying. Those black eyes missed nothing. It was as if she was trying to read the whole meaning of this soft, air-breathing creature that had come down into her prison. When Melina finally surfaced, her face was pale. Her hands shook as they pulled off her helmet. "She's not hostile," she said. Her voice was tight, like she was forcing herself to stay calm. "She's intelligent. She's assessing." By the 11th day, Echo had begun copying some of Dr. Weiss's basic hand movements. The official record said this might show comprehension. Her physical health was stable, though she still behaved strangely at night. Her low sounds were increasing. A new frequency had been recorded at 37 hertz. It made the glass vibrate. People standing on the observation deck could feel it in their feet and teeth. After that, earplugs became required for all night shift staff. The report also included one sentence that no one liked repeating out loud. "She appears to watch us watching her." I began staying after hours. At first, I told myself it was because I cared about the work. I told myself I wanted to review the spectral data, study the video logs, and understand the patterns in her sounds. That was a clean reason, a professional reason. But the truth was colder and harder. I was drawn to the tank. I could not stay away from her. Echo moved like liquid shadow. There was terrible beauty in the way she crossed the water. Her body was close enough to human to be disturbing, but different enough to feel wrong. Her arms were too long. Her joints bent with a strange grace. Her fingers were thin and bony, joined by delicate webbing that shone faintly when the lights hit it. At the tips of those fingers were claws sharp enough to carve lines into the acrylic if she ever chose to. Along the sides of her neck were gills. They opened and closed like torn necklaces made of flesh. When she breathed fast, they fluttered. When she was still, they pulsed slowly, almost peacefully. Her mouth was the part I hated most. When it opened, it revealed too many teeth. They were thin, pointed, and packed together like needles in a forest. They did not belong in any mouth that could form thought. Her head was smooth and hairless. Scars marked her skin, but they did not look like normal wounds. They looked almost intentional, like symbols carved into living stone. Her eyes were black and shining, like pearls taken from some place far deeper than any human grave. They reflected the dim safety lights, but gave nothing back. She was made for the absolute dark. She had come from a world of crushing pressure, where a human body would fold in on itself. She belonged in a place where light had no meaning. But sometimes, late at night, she looked almost human. She would float just under the surface, face turned up toward the lights over the tank. Unmoving, waiting, Melina worked with her every day. She used patterns of light, hand symbols, and controlled sound pulses. It was not a language yet, not fully, but something was moving between them in the water, something slow and careful, a kind of recognition.
A patience so deep that it frightened me. She's not learning that it frightened me. She's not learning in a side corridor away from the main theme. She spoke quietly like she was afraid the walls might hear. She is not just copying to get a reward, she said. She is choosing. Choosing what? I asked. Melina looked toward the tank. To understand us, she said. To see if we are worth the effort. By the 15th day, Echo responded with symbols that Dr. Weiss translated as "me you cage seer kare." The exact meaning was unclear. One motion, a twisting movement of the hand, seemed to mean before. Melina thought it might be a reference to memory, or maybe to an event that happened in the past. The signs were becoming harder to dismiss as simple training. Echo seemed to understand ideas beyond hunger, fear, and survival. That day, Echo made a new symbol on her own, a closed fist held over the heart. Melina translated it as alone. After that, Melina began to change, or share kare. After that, Melina began to change. At first, it was hard to see. She still came to the tank. She still worked. She still filed reports and answered questions. But the sharp, bright woman who had first arrived at Echo 9 started to grow quiet. She ate less. She slept less. During debriefings, she stopped meeting my eyes. Her gaze always drifted back to the dark water, even when Echo was hidden far below. One night, we stood together on the observation deck after everyone else had left. The only sound was the hum of machines and the deep pressure groans of the tank. She's remembering something, Melina said. I looked at her. What do you mean? I don't know how I know that, she whispered. I just feel it. She is remembering. Remembering what? Melina's face was pale under the lights. Everything, she said. Use. A week later, Melina did not show up for her shift. The official memo came by email. It said she had been reassigned to a forward research station. आज कंटेंट में बदलें और शेयर करें. Her personal things were gone from her quarters, but her level 5 ID badge was found tucked in the back of her locker, left behind like trash. Echo did not swim for 3 days after Melina disappeared. She sank to the bottom of the tank and lay there, curled into herself like a fossil. One clawed finger moved slowly through the silt, drawing patterns too detailed to be random. Swirls, lines, circles, angles. Sometimes she wiped them away and started again. Sometimes she stared at them for hours. No one knew what they meant.